Could there be a scientific basis to the way we are all connected? Albert Einstein changed the world with one equation. Yet he knew that his greatest work, to create a single unified theory of the universe, was never finished. Einstein knew how important it would be to humanity if this could be discovered, and he kept searching for answers. But before he could solve it, he ran out of time. Others have built on the work of Albert Einstein in the search for a unified theory of everything. Some people have a knowingness of this connection between the macro and the micro. In the past, we've created mythology around it. But what if we could understand it through the lens of science? Nacim Haramein has been exploring how everything is contained in everything else. The exploration of the universe through mathematics and physics has been complex. Yet from this complexity emerges simplicity. What if there is a way of proving that everything is connected and one at the same time? To understand this, we must take a journey, and our journey begins with the proton. If you remember back to your high school science class, atoms are everywhere and the protons are at the center of every atom. Therefore, we must accurately understand the proton if we're going to understand the universe. New measurements of the proton suggest we must change our existing way of thinking. Nacim Haramein was the first person to have accurately predicted the new measurement of the charge radius of the proton. The proton could hold the key to a scientific understanding of how the connection of the universe actually works. 1905. Einstein demonstrated through an example of a person traveling on a train the theory of relativity. He unified the separate camps of energy and mass with his famous formula. But later, a great divide in physics occurred when Niels Bohr and a group of physicists split off to explore quantum mechanics. They saw two worlds, a quantum world that describes the probabilities and the uncertainties of the very small, and the separate mathematics for the larger universe. Creating this division led to a very disconnected way of thinking. Nacim Haramein, the Director of Research for the Resonance Science Foundation, has been on a lifelong search to discover a unified theory of everything.
My passion for learning never subsided. As soon as I left school, I got more passionate than ever about understanding the universe, studying physics and mathematics and so on, to try to describe it better and eventually to write a unified view of physics. To me, it was critical that we understood the source of reality. We come here and we experience this life, and most people don't ask, like, how did I get here? What is this life? How am I moving billions and trillions of atoms around? I was exploring all this for my own personal satisfaction. It really wasn't to get a master's degrees or a PhD in some institution. I knew that if I went to the institution, I felt I was going to be restricted. I knew I was going to be given very specific concept that I would have to go with. I didn't want that. I wanted to be completely free to think what I wanted to think as I explored. It led me down a very specific road. Certainly some of the things I thought turned out to be wrong, But eventually, I started to home in on the stuff that worked together, and I found something, I think, very fundamental and very profound.
To understand how everything is unified, Nassim had to study nature. He had to look at patterns. He looked at the macro and the micro. He started asking questions about some of the fundamental principles science has taken for granted, and started to wonder if, somewhere, we went off on the wrong track. As he continued his journey, he began to understand that in order to see how everything is connected, we had to look at everything.
Everything we experience as reality is actually made up of 99.99999% space. The little part that's not space, or the little part we define as something, the material world, is actually just a little oscillation, a little electromagnetic boundary that we are bumping against, and we call that our reality. We call that a stone, an atom, we call that the water, the sand, or a star, a galaxy. And so maybe instead of looking at matter, defining the space, I start to think maybe it's space that defines matter.
It is fascinating to realize that if you remove the empty space in every atom of every human being on the planet and compress it all together, all of humanity would fit into the size of a sugar cube. Granted, it would have the density of a neutron star and weigh approximately 478 million tons, but this helps us to visualize the importance of understanding that every one of us are made of mostly empty space. But as it turns out, that space is not empty.
It was found that space-time at the quantum level is fluctuating with intense energy level, full of dynamic energy components.
We are not only talking about the space outside of our planet, we are talking about the space inside each and every atom of your body. Every single human on this planet has this in common. Regardless of race, color, or religion, we are all individual beings, yet this dynamic energy of the universe is constantly flowing through all of the space inside each one of our atoms, connecting us all. This helps us understand the profound quote of the Sufi poet Rumi, who said, "You are not a drop of water in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop." You can literally feel the force of the universe inside you and flowing through you, connecting you to everything, because you are a part of everything through this dynamic energy. The great theoretical physicist John Archibald Wheeler, a colleague of Einstein, said, "No point is more central than this, that empty space is not empty. It is the seat of the most violent physics." The theoretical physicist David Bohm explained, "Space is not empty. The universe is not separate from this cosmic sea of energy." And Albert Einstein said, "Physical objects are not in space, but these objects are spatially extended as fields. In this way, the concept of empty space loses its meaning." This underlying background energy that exists everywhere in space is described in physics as the vacuum.